Hey lads, welcome to another commentary video. This time we are in the tempo of the Jade Serpent, and this is going to be a +20 fortified key. I'm going to go through that from the Restoration Shaman point of view. It is a fortified week, but I consider the trash here to be actually harder than the bosses, so that's probably a good thing. So let's start off the first pool here. I'm not sure if you're lusting or not. Actually, we are, right? And the trash here could be very nasty for several reasons. So first, you have the small bubbles that do the splash, which is just a big AoE damage. So obviously, that's going to chunk everybody down. Then you have Water Speaker Caster, which does the Hydro Bolts that you'd like to interrupt because they do single target damage to the target. And the important part to interrupt on the Water Speaker is the Tidal Burst. This is a huge AoE which on a higher key is just going to wipe you. One thing to note, all of these abilities are dodgeable if you just go line of sight, right? So there's a lot of corners here, so if you see that he's casting either Tidal Burst or Hydro Wave on you, you can basically hide behind the corner. The next thing that I died on is the big elementals, which have two mechanics. The one that I died to was a big patch on the ground that you simply need to move out from, which I didn't. And then the other one is the Surge Deluge, is the thing on the ground. The other important cast is the Tainted cast, which basically is huge AoE, the Tainted Riptide, and after the AoE, it also puts a debuff on you. Now, this one is also dodgeable if you line of sight. So if your tank pulls that mob close to a corner, make sure to line of sight it at least for yourself, so there's less to heal on the next pool. So we got another pool here with a Water Speaker and some of the small mobs. This one should be pretty chill. You saw the Tidal Burst. This mob, by the way, is also stunnable. Hexable, so you can do all kinds of little techniques to interrupt it. And then we get to the first fun pool. So you have one of the elementals and two Water Speakers. There's a lot of interrupts to go on here. You have to prioritize the Tidal Burst. As you saw, I actually hide for the Tainted Riptide, but the bursts were interrupted by my party. But as I said, if even one of those goes off, it's probably a wipe. Now the tank this time pulls them around the corner, so it's easier for everybody to just dodge. But a lot of tanks actually just keep the mobs in the middle there, and that makes it very, very hard for you to dodge. And it also makes it so all of your melee is going to get hit, as it happened right here. I have 4 melees in this group, so these pulls could be very hard. Be prepared to use cooldowns. The boss after that is actually very easy, so don't be afraid to pop every single cooldown that you have on the trash before the first boss. Even if you don't have Bloodlust for it, as we're going to be in that situation in just a second. Clear Thundering, be careful if people are hiding behind corners, because it might be hard to find them, and that gets us to the first boss. Now, the first boss is going to cast the Hydro Lance, which you should interrupt. That's the only interrupt that you have to do. So that is just a single target damage, but of course, that's something that you can easily avoid, so make sure to interrupt. And then the other thing that he does, if you saw my frames, he puts a debuff on a person. And that person is first going to take a bit of damage, and then second, they're going to leave a puddle on the ground. Now, I don't think that ever goes on the healer, but if it's on you, you want to drop the puddle away from that inner circle that you're using, because you need that area to be cleaned of those puddles for the other mechanic that the boss does, and that's the wash away. Now, the wash away, as you saw, it's just a frontal that circles around the room, and if you get hit, you're one-shotted. So basically, you just need to run away from that, clearing Thundering across the way. Now, the thing that might kill you while you run away, which is just what happened to my monk, is the bursts that happen in the water. Now, the easiest thing to do is just watch for the little sparks that happen in the water around you, and after 2 of these, then you're going to see this big splash of water around you. This is what kills you, right? This is the cast itself. So you have to wait for that to happen, and then when it's clear, this is when you can actually move through the water and be safe. Now, keep in mind that if you're lagging a little bit or something, you can still get caught and get hit by the water. So try to move preemptively and make sure that you're only doing that when the water is calm and there's no splashes. So here's another little splashes. I actually managed to run through the water during the small splashes, right? Before the big burst, but again, you have to be careful. And the boss does a full 360, so basically if you know where he started, if you just run a little bit to the other side, you'll be fine, and the beam is not going to reach you. So it's pretty easy fight as long as people do the mechanics correctly. If you get killed for whatever reason, then it becomes a very long fight, especially on Tyrannical weeks. And yeah, basically, if you wipe on this, the only thing to be careful is, as you saw, I died in the middle of the platform, which is why I said be careful when you lag. But in this case, the wash away was actually cast on me, so this is the worst case scenario, right? And you need to be prepared to move very, very quickly and out of the way. Alright, so I guess I didn't play that perfectly. I thought I'm safe. I didn't. I died. And now 2 more trash, which is even more fun than the one that we saw earlier. Alright, so the Haunting Sha is just going to do a big tank burst. So there's a cast that happens here. I'm not sure what the name was. Haunting something. But that one is Haunting Gaze, right? The 2 pandas, though, that we just pulled are a bit more interesting. Apart from hitting your tank, they throw a torch at a target, which is a huge dot that you can dispel. However, the other panda is also going to throw a torch, and basically you cannot dispel both of them because your ability is on cooldown. So the second one you have to heal through. And as you can see, we actually have a lot of AoE damage from the Sha and from the pandas. So the idea here is focus the person with the torch, because they're guaranteed to die if you don't kill them. The torch is actually stuck, so if you wait a little bit and the second torch is thrown on the same person, you can dispel both, but this is a huge gamble. So definitely don't do that. I would say dispel the first torch as soon as possible. If it's on the tank or on you, you can like pop a defensive and then wait for the second torch and dispel that. But other than that, those are actually very, very hard mobs, especially in Fortified week, and be expected to do a lot of healing for them. Now, the talking head, the talking fish here does a splash, so that's another AoE damage that you need to be prepared for. The Howling Scream is actually a fear that you need to interrupt. If you don't interrupt that, you basically get feared, and you'll probably die with the fish chasing you. And as you can see, we don't pull big here because all of this trash is quite nasty, and we don't want to wipe, obviously. The fish also does a channel which puts somebody to sleep, so there's, I guess, plenty to interrupt. The sleep from the fish and the scream from the other mob. Now, the bird here does an area on the ground that you need to stay out of, and it also does a tank buster. So be prepared to heal your tank, and also be prepared to heal your melee if they don't get out of the song or whatever it is, the temporal displacement here. If they don't get away from it fast, as you can see, they get some debuffs and then they take extra damage. So other than that, it's a relatively easy mob. However, the lesser Sha that we pulled with it, those are small mobs that basically don't do anything, but when they die, they also burst and do AoE damage. So, especially later on in dungeon, if you pull a lot of these and you kill them all at the same time, you might as well die. So, that's a little bit up to your DPS, but if you pull these, be prepared, because you know that there's incoming damage when they die, and they don't have that much HP anyway. This pull could be relatively hard, so the little tiger is going to charge people and leave a bleeding debuff on them. The rest of the mobs, as you can see, they do AoE, and the Holzen actually does a cast. If you don't interrupt it, he enrages and starts to do even more damage. So another pull here that probably will requires some cooldowns from you on the Fortified week. As you can see, the bleed is going on, and those mobs are actually stunnable, so you can try to CC them to reduce the amount of incoming damage, but as I said, it's a pretty nasty trash in here, and this pack is not an exception. So yeah, generally, you might be required to help with some of the interrupts every now and then, but focus on doing some big heals on those pools because they are quite nasty. Alright, make sure to drink before this boss. This boss is not very hard, but it requires actually a lot of healing because there's pulsing AoE damage at all times. Hopefully you know how this boss works. The tank is probably going to call... when you hit a boss, he gets a stacking debuff, and if that gets to a 10, you are basically going to immune that boss for a second and you won't be able to hit him. So your party is probably going to call how many stacks you want to hit one of the bosses for, and then switch to the other. So just pay attention to that, right? You want to spread your flame shocks and do damage to both of the bosses, but make sure that you're not hitting something that is not supposed to be hit anymore, because it's if you don't hit the bosses for a while, they lose the stacks and then you can start hitting them again. But if you keep hitting them and everybody else is on the second boss, you just basically immune the one that you're supposed to hit in several moments. Now, that agony that they cast is basically, I think that's the AoE, right? As you can see, we're all getting some damage constantly. So what I would do here is I would cast my healing rain, so the acid rain actually hits both of the bosses. That puts everybody on the deluge debuff, so I'm healing them for 20% more, and then I am basically trying to chain heal, spot heal with my Riptides, and if people start to get really low, basically pop a cooldown, right? So you have Ascendance, you have Ancestral Guidance, you can use your Healing Tide. This is only in the situations where you basically start to fall behind a little bit, because of the chunking damage. But as long as you have some cooldowns, and probably on lower keys you don't even need cooldowns, you can just heal through the damage with chain heal. As long as you keep your healing rain up to get the 20% healing buff, you should be totally fine on this boss. It is a little bit taxing on your mana because you have to be constantly casting the heals, but we had Lust in this case, but you should be able to kill that boss without much trouble, even on Tyrannical, even without Lust. Alright, on to even more fun trash. So this big infester mob is going to do a frontal. This is what happened right now, and then it is going to summon a bunch of those small shas that do a lot of damage when they die. So this is what happens right now, as you can see, and once those start dying, you see that we are getting chunked, so you have to be prepared to heal, right? And you have to be prepared to dodge the frontal. This is just the nature of this mob, and there are 2 or 3 more mobs like that you have to heal. The other thing that it does, actually that's not the big mob, so there's 2 mobs here. One is the Mistweaver, and then the other one is the Shah Guardian. So the Shah Guardian, I think he does the debuff, the curse that you saw. The curse is a 4-second curse. If it expires, it will first do a bunch of damage, and then it's going to put a heal absorb shield on that person. It's also AoE damage, but let's assume that that person stays away if that expires. This is a bit hard on healers that cannot dispel the curse, because the person is going to get really low, and then they have absorb shield that you have to heal through, and then you have the small mobs, they'll just die from the AoE, right? Luckily, we are shaman, so if you run the remove curse talent, you can just, as you can see, my rogue had the debuff right now, you can just dispel that, and you don't have to worry about it. That makes it really easy to deal with this. The Mistweaver has 2 things. So it has the leg sweep, which hits your tank, and then it's a tank buster, and it also puts a debuff on them, which reduces the healing they take with 20%. The other thing he just casted was the leg sweep, so make sure, this is just a big circle on the ground, make sure to move out of that, and hope that your melee is also going to move out of that, and you'll be totally fine. And then we have the small minion of doubt, which does those little orbs that are just the blue circles on the ground. Make sure to move out of them, and that mob also has a small tank buster. So basically, watch your tank. If that mob hits it and hits the leg sweep, he can actually drop pretty low and be in a lot of trouble. All right, so another one of the big mobs. It is a single mob, but he's going to spawn the lesser shas. So usually don't want to pull with the other pack here, because the other packs also have lesser shas, and if you kill many of those at the same time, you're just going to wipe. But that's, of course, entirely up to your group. Now, there's a patrol in the room, which just pulled a bunch of other lesser shas and one of the small infestors. So be prepared for a lot of damage, even if you pull that patrol single-handedly because of the lesser shas. And of course, the infestor is the haunting shas, sorry, is the name of the mob, is going to cast that fear that you need to interrupt, and the haunting gaze is a tank buster. Alright, so this is, I think, all the mobs that we're going to see from here on. It's just a different combinations of them in the groups that are going to come up front. So, as you can see, at the front there is a Mistweaver with Sha Guardian and another Minion of Doubt, and here is another Haunting Sha with lesser mobs and a Minion of Doubt, right? So the Minion of Doubt is going to put the circles on the ground, and then you have to be careful not to let a fear go off from the other mob. At all times, you need to be casting heals, because there is lesser shas in all of those packs. So when they die, people are going to be taking damage. There's no avoiding that. But if there's a Guardian, make sure to dispel the curse. If the curse goes off, that's a lot of trouble for the person. Of course, you can heal through the absorb shield after that. But basically, there's nothing else to dispel. So don't put yourself through that trouble. And be prepared for your tank to take damage, especially if there is a Mistweaver in the group, although the Minion of Doubt also have a little tank buster as well. Alright, so we're pulling slow here, because, of course, it's a Fortified week, and we have time. I'm not sure how my monk died over here. Let me see if I check. I think he just pulled aggro. But other than that, just be prepared for a lot of healing here, right? Don't be afraid to pop cooldowns on this trash as well, because the boss that follows is a lot of single target healing, but other than that, you're not going to need, for example, something like Ascendus or Resto Guidance to heal everybody up, although you could utilize that for the tank. The Mistweaver also does this channel, the Mist, which you can interrupt. This one is actually preferable to be interrupted because it does AoE damage around him, so your melee is going to get hit, and the leg sweep that you see right now is also stunnable, although that's not interruptible by the Wind Shear or any other ability. Okay, so hopefully you managed to live through this trash. It is pretty nasty, but in this case we pulled small, so it was manageable. And then we have the Flameheart boss, which has basically 3 phases. The second phase here is the hardest one, but let's start the fight. Usually, well, it depends on the group. Sometimes you lose this boss, sometimes you lose the last boss. That depends on your group. So when the fight starts, he is going to do basically 3 abilities. The first one is the strike, the Serpent Strike, which leaves a small dot on your tank and hits him initially for a bunch of damage. Then he does the circle on the ground. If you're ranged, you just stay out of it. If you're melee, you have to run out. And there are 4 waves that go out of the circle. So basically, dispel the tank, stay out of the circle, and if the wave is on you, move to the side. That is the first phase. That goes up until 70%, and this is pretty chill and pretty easy. Nobody except your tank should be taking damage. That's why I said it's a single spot healing fight. Now, at 70%, he starts casting those 3 abilities again, but they are empowered because he goes into the Jade Serpent mode or whatever. So the Jade Strike now does the same thing. So it's initial tank burst with a dot, but then it also leaves an absorb shield to the tank, which is actually bigger than the initial tank. And what needs to happen here is you need to pump heals into your tank as crazy so you can get rid of that absorb shield. Now, what I would do, what I would try to do most of the time is I want to have a Reap type drawing, and then I want to cast a healing rain on my tank, so he gets 20% more healing, and then I'm just trying to pump healing surges into him, so he gets 20% more healing from the deluge. He gets also undulation cast hopefully into him, and you can get rid of the shield pretty quickly. The rest, again, get out of the circle, and the waves that you still need to dodge are now going to leave puddles on the ground. If you get the boss to 30%, then you get into the next phase, which is relatively easy as well. So now the boss has a frontal, which the tank can basically dodge. Some tanks do not dodge it though, so be prepared to still heal them. And then there's the big green things, big green things on the ground that you need to avoid. So that's relatively easy, right? If you get to this phase, it's pretty much win if everybody's alive. And basically your job on this fight is just heal the tank. If anybody else gets hit by the waves, on the hierarchies they're dead anyway, so there's no healing through that, and there's nothing that you can do. Alright, and now the trash before the last boss. The first pack is the well-familiar Minion of Doubt, Mistweaver, and Shark Guardian, so all of those abilities that we discussed will be available, but now we have Water Speakers as well. And those are our good friends from the beginning of the dungeon, where they do the Hydro Lance and then the Tidal Burst. Of course, the Tidal Burst needs to be interrupted at all costs, because it's a huge AoE, and then the rest, as we saw, are abilities that we have already seen. There's 2 more packs like that. So this one is 2 Shark Guardians and a Mistweaver. This one could be a little bit tricky because I don't think it happens here, but it's possible to get 2 curses relatively close to each other, so you're not able to dispel one of them. So CCing those mobs, stunning them, etc. Could be a good thing to do here. Again, the curse is probably not going to kill the person if you don't dispel it, but if it goes off, first make sure that person is away from other people, and then make sure to pump a lot of heals on them, because they get a healing absorb shield that needs to go away. At least there's no little Shas in the spool, so it's a little bit more chill from that perspective. The next spool has 2 Mistweavers and a Hydro Lancer, I think, so a lot of interrupts to be done. Of course, Cap Totem, everything that you can do, and watch for the Tidal Burst. These spools are not that hard unless your group and your tank decides to do a double or triple pull or something, and then you need a lot of CC, a lot of coordination, and there's going to be a lot of damage going on. Alright, and that leaves us with that last spool. On 45 weeks, I would say even CC some of these mobs, because there's going to be a lot of going on here. So we have 2 of the Howling Shas that do the fear, you have to interrupt that. You have the Minions of Doubt, which have the Tank Buster and the puddles on the ground that just cost. And then you have one of the big mobs that is going to do the frontal, which you have to dodge, and also summon a little smaller, lesser Shas, whatever, which on this week also cast explosives on them. So be prepared to basically waste a lot of cooldowns here, because this is a very, very hard pull. So your tank is going to be taking a lot of damage, then your whole group is going to be taking AoE damage because of the lesser Shas, and then there's also interrupts to be done and frontals to be dodged. So very, very hard on Fortified weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if you are in a bug and there's not much coordination. You might call for some CCs, right? So there's like fears, traps that you can use if you have a hunter and stuff like that, just so you have lesser mobs to deal with. At least the one good thing is that the door behind us is open, so if you die, you can respawn, release, and respawn very close to here, run back in, and basically zerg this pool if this is what it comes down to. But probably this is one of the hardest pools in this dungeon. Unfortunately, it's the very end. But be prepared, right? It's very nasty. You can use your stun to stun the smaller mobs, so there's less mechanics going on, but it's very, 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 very nasty, especially on 45 weeks. And that leaves us with the last boss. So the last boss is relatively easy if you have a second dispel. In this case, we do not. So what's going to happen is he does this AoE at all times, and then he's going to put 2 curses on 2 people of the group. Move away from those people, because they pulls damage. Dispel one of them, and then if you don't have a second dispel, start healing the other person because they'll be taking a lot of damage, and wait for your dispel to come back on cooldown so that you can dispel again. Now, I'll get back to that in a second. We're in the transition phase. You want to stack here, and then you want to stun and CC those adds, kill them as soon as possible, otherwise they're going to heal the boss, and there's a lot of damage going on. So basically save cooldowns for these phases, because this is where people could actually die. So pop your Ascendance there, Ancestral Guidance, Healing Tide Totem, even Spiritling. All of those will work. Be prepared to use them, and also try to stack, because then you can cleave the adds very quickly. The other thing to watch for, not in that phase of course, is decurse as soon as possible, right? Remove one of the curses, because if the other person cannot remove their debuff, it's up to you. So you have to wait, I'm not sure what, 8 or 9 seconds until your decurse comes off cooldown again, and the boss is going to do another cast shortly after, right? So if you don't dispel quickly, you just fall behind the decurses, and there's no catching up at some points, because everybody's going to be just taking damage. So watch for the curse, dispel the person as quickly as possible, and then dispel the second one as soon as your ability is off of cooldown. Cap Totem the adds in the transition phase, War Stomp, whatever you have. Use the CDs there, and other than that, basically you can just spot heal the person with the curse that's going on, and you will have to cast a few more heals to everybody else for the AoE that goes on. So that's pretty much it. It's a very healing intensive fight, right? Don't get me wrong, it's a hard fight, but usually on Tyrannical weeks you probably have lust for this as well, and you are trying to kill the boss as quickly as possible, so you have to go through as little as possible phases where you have to kill the extra adds. Once you get the dance, so to speak, once you get the rotation here, it's pretty much rinse and repeat. And on a longer fight, your cooldowns will basically start to come back for the subsequent add phases. Unlucky here, the boss is immune during that add phase. He was like at 1%, but we still have to kill the adds so we can hit the boss again. The adds do spawn explosives this week, so that's another inconvenient thing that you have to do, but at the end of the day, success. So we managed to kill it with 3 phases or so. But you know, on Tyrannical weeks, you need to be prepared to last longer on these fights, because they will be much longer since the boss hits harder and has more health. Alright, so 4 melee in this group, so I think, yeah, Chain Heal is my top healing here, right? You get a lot of value out of it, simply because everybody is stacked, and you can cast your Healing Rain on them, do damage with Acid Rain, and then, of course, cast the Chain Heal, which is going to hit for 20% more because of the Deluge debuff. Alright, so I do consider this to be one of the harder dungeons, because, especially in the Pug, of course, because these guys played really good. We had all the interrupts and all the stuns at place, but if you don't have a good group, the trash is just going to overwhelm you, because there's going to be casts going off, everybody's going to be taking much more damage, and at some point it becomes unhealable. Alright, so hopefully you managed to learn something from this video. Thanks for watching, happy healing, and I'll see you in the next one.